Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's happening, football fans? Buckle up because we're diving deep into one of the most controversial situations brewing in the NFL right now, and trust me, you won't believe what's going down in Cleveland. The Browns coaching staff is catching serious heat, and it's all centered around one player who's become the talk of the league for all the wrong reasons: Jerry Jeudy. This story has more twists than a soap opera, more drama than a reality TV show, and enough finger-pointing to make your head spin. So let's break down this absolute mess that's unfolding in real time. And I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to understand why everyone from fans to analysts to opposing players can't stop talking about what's happening with the Cleveland Browns. First things first, let's set the stage. When Shedeur Sanders stepped into the starting quarterback role for the Browns late in the season, everyone knew he was walking into a challenging situation. But here's the thing, one of the biggest factors that determines whether a young quarterback succeeds or fails in this league is the talent around him, specifically his receiving core. You need reliable targets, guys who can consistently make plays, catch the football, and give their quarterback confidence. The Browns have some intriguing young receivers who've stepped up and shown flashes of brilliance this season, but then there's Jerry Jeudy, and oh boy, where do we even begin with this situation? Now, before we get into the controversy, let's talk about the relationship between Shedeur Sanders and Jerry Jeudy off the field. By all accounts, everything seems perfectly fine. They're professional, they work together, there's no reported beef or personal drama between them. The chemistry seems to be there when they're in meetings, during practice walkthroughs in the locker room. But here's where things get absolutely wild. The moment these two step onto the football field during actual game situations, it's like watching a relationship fall apart in slow motion. Something just isn't clicking. The timing is off, the connection isn't there, and most importantly, Jerry Jeudy simply cannot figure out how to consistently haul in passes from his quarterback. Let's be brutally honest here, because the stats don't lie and the film doesn't lie. Right now, Jerry Jeudy is performing at a level that has many people scratching their heads, wondering why he's even in the starting lineup. Week after week, we're seeing the same issues: dropped passes, missed connections, routes that don't seem crisp, a receiver who looks like he's playing in slow motion while everyone else is at full speed. And here's what makes this situation even more frustrating for Browns fans. This isn't just a Shedeur Sanders problem. Jerry Jeudy was dropping passes with Deshaun Watson before he got injured. He was dropping passes with Joe Flacco when the veteran came in. He was even dropping passes during joint practices and preseason work. This is a pattern, not an isolated incident. So naturally, you'd think the coaching staff would address this, right? You'd think they'd maybe consider giving other receivers more opportunities, perhaps adjust the game plan to work around a struggling player, or at the very least publicly acknowledge that there's an issue that needs to be corrected. But no, here's where this story takes its most bizarre turn. For reasons that absolutely baffle everyone watching the situation unfold, the Cleveland Browns coaching staff has made it their personal mission to praise Jerry Jeudy at every opportunity. I'm not talking about measured diplomatic coach speak. I'm talking about full-throated endorsements that make you wonder if we're all watching the same games. It started with head coach Kevin Stefanski, who has bent over backwards making excuses for Jeudy's performance. When asked about the receiver's struggles, Stefanski has repeatedly suggested that maybe the timing with Shedeur isn't quite there yet, that maybe the young quarterback needs more reps, that maybe it's a chemistry issue that will work itself out. In other words, he's subtly implying that some of this might be on Shedeur Sanders, which is absolutely wild when you consider that Jeudy has been dropping passes from multiple quarterbacks for weeks now. It's like watching someone's house burn down and suggesting that maybe the problem is the fire department isn't spraying the water at the right angle. But wait, it gets better. Or worse, depending on your perspective. Just recently, offensive coordinator Tommy Rees held a press conference, and his comments about Jerry Jeudy have sparked absolute outrage across the football world. Now, Rees was addressing the legitimate concern that Shedeur Sanders hasn't received enough reps with Jerry Jeudy, or really any of the first-team offense, before being thrust into the starting role. That's a fair point. Limited practice time can absolutely affect on-field chemistry. But then Rees said something that made jaws drop all across the internet. Here's the exact quote that has everyone talking. "Every time the ball goes to Jerry Jeudy, We have trust that it's going to be a completion, and we have trust that he's going to win. Read that again. Let it sink in. The offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns just told the world that every single time they throw the ball to Jerry Jeudy, they trust it's going to be completed, and they trust he's going to win his matchup. Now, I don't know what film Tommy Rees has been watching, but it sure as hell isn't the same film the rest of us have been seeing. For the past 2 or 3 weeks, Jerry Jeudy hasn't been winning anything. In fact, he's been doing the complete opposite. He's been losing and losing badly. We're talking about dropped passes on crucial third downs. We're talking about routes where he's not creating separation. We're talking about moments where Shedeur Sanders puts the ball in a catchable spot and Jeudy just can't bring it in. This isn't about being overly critical or piling on a struggling player. This is about the disconnect between what the coaching staff is saying publicly and what we're all witnessing with our own eyes every Sunday. It's gaslighting on a grand scale, and fans aren't buying it for a second. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for the Browns, because guess who's on the schedule this upcoming weekend? The Buffalo Bills. You know, the team with one of the best defenses in the league, led by defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier and featuring playmakers like Von Miller and Matt Milano. The Bills are a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and they're coming to Cleveland ready to expose every single weakness the Browns have. And trust me, they've noticed the Jerry Jeudy situation. In fact, several Bills players recently opened up about preparing to face Shedeur Sanders, and their comments are absolutely fascinating. When asked about the young Browns quarterback, Bills players were diplomatic but honest. They talked about Shedeur being young and still finding his way in the NFL, which is fair. He's only had a couple of starts. They mentioned the Browns having a strong running game with talented backs who can carry the offensive load. They acknowledged that Cleveland has weapons in the receiving room and at tight end. But here's what's interesting. They didn't specifically mention Jerry Jeudy as someone they're worried about. That silence speaks volumes. One Bills defender noted that they have a lot of respect for what the Browns can do offensively, but they also feel confident in their ability to match up across the board. When you're preparing to face a team, you game plan for the players who scare you, the guys who can beat you. The fact that Jerry Jeudy isn't generating that kind of concern from a top-tier defense tells you everything you need to know about how he's been performing. Opposing teams watch film too, and they've seen the same struggles everyone else has witnessed. Meanwhile, the Bills are absolutely rolling right now. Quarterback Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level, currently sitting pretty in the conversation for the league's most valuable player. The guy has thrown for an absurd number of touchdowns this season, 299 and counting, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. When Bills players were asked about potentially clinching a playoff spot this week, you could hear the confidence in their responses. They're not just expecting to make the playoffs, they're expecting to peak at the right time and make a deep run. Josh Allen himself spoke about the evolution of his career in Buffalo, reflecting on how far he's come since being drafted in 2018. Back then, he was just trying to figure out protections and throwing mechanics. Now, he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the entire league, a guy who can beat you with his arm, his legs, his football IQ, and his leadership. He credits his growth to the army of people around him, coaches, teammates, trainers, family, all while maintaining the humility to say he's still finding ways to improve each week. That's what championship-level players sound like. The Bills are also getting healthy at the right time. Trey White, the cornerback who means so much to that organization, has been making plays and showing why Buffalo brought him back. Matt Milano is working his way back from injury, and his presence on defense is massive for their playoff aspirations. Von Miller remains one of the most disruptive edge rushers in football, even at his age. This Bills team has weapons everywhere, experience in big games, and the kind of confident swagger that comes from knowing they're one of the best teams in the AFC. So let's paint the picture of what's about to happen this weekend. The Browns, with their struggling receiving situation and questionable coaching decisions, are going to host a Bills team that's firing on all cylinders. Shedeur Sanders, who still hasn't had adequate time to develop chemistry with his weapons, is going to face a Bills defense that has seen all the film on Jerry Jeudy's drops and struggles. Buffalo's secondary, featuring some of the best cornerbacks in the league, is going to challenge every single throw. And the Browns coaching staff, despite all evidence to the contrary, is going to keep insisting that they have complete trust in Jerry Jeudy. This is where the story gets really interesting from a psychological standpoint. What is the Browns coaching staff actually accomplishing by publicly defending Jerry Jeudy in such absolute terms? There are a few possibilities here. Maybe they're trying to boost his confidence, hoping that public support will help him play through his struggles. That's the charitable interpretation. Maybe they're trying to protect his trade value, keeping up appearances so that other teams don't completely write him off. That's the cynical but possibly accurate interpretation. Or maybe, just maybe, they genuinely believe what they're saying, which would be the most concerning possibility of all because it would suggest a complete disconnect between the coaching staff and reality. Here's what we know for sure. Jerry Jeudy was a first-round draft pick out of Alabama, a guy who was supposed to be a star receiver in this league. He had the college pedigree, the athleticism, the route-running ability. He flashed potential during his time with the Denver Broncos before being traded to Cleveland. The talent is theoretically there, but potential doesn't matter if you can't translate it to production on Sundays. Right now, Jerry Jeudy looks like a player who's in his own head, pressing too hard, and unable to recapture whatever made him special in college. The drops are the most visible issue, but they're probably also a symptom of deeper problems.
Playing football, practicing football, which he hasn't done in over a year. So
it often means he's not tracking the ball properly, he's thinking too much instead of reacting instinctively, or he's lost confidence in his hands. Football is such a mental game at the NFL level. Once a player starts doubting themselves, it becomes a vicious cycle. They press harder, which makes them tense, which leads to more mistakes, which erodes confidence further. Breaking out of that cycle requires a combination of mental coaching, physical repetition, and often a change of scenery or situation. What makes this situation especially frustrating for Browns fans is the wasted opportunity. Shedeur Sanders is a young quarterback who needs to be set up for success. He needs receivers he can trust, guys who will consistently win their matchups and make plays when the ball comes their way. Instead, he's throwing to a receiver who's become unreliable. And worse, he's probably starting to second-guess whether he should target Jeudy at all. That hesitation can poison an entire offensive system. If the quarterback doesn't trust his receivers, he holds the ball too long, takes unnecessary sacks, or forces throws to other options even when they're not the best read. The coaching staff's insistence on praising Jeudy and keeping him in the starting lineup also sends a troubling message to the rest of the receiving corps. If you're a young receiver who's been working hard, making plays in practice, and waiting for your opportunity, how do you feel watching Jerry Jeudy get chance after chance despite consistent struggles? It can create resentment in the locker room, undermine the meritocracy that's supposed to exist in professional sports, and make players wonder what they actually have to do to earn playing time. Looking ahead to the Bills game, the Browns are facing a nightmare scenario. Buffalo's defense is going to dare Cleveland to throw the ball. They'll stack the box, take away the run, and force Shedeur Sanders to beat them through the air. When that happens, Shedeur is going to have to trust his receivers to win their matchups and make contested catches. If Jerry Jeudy is on the field in crucial situations, and if he continues the pattern of unreliable hands, this game could get ugly fast. The Bills' offense, led by Josh Allen, is capable of putting up points in bunches. If the Browns can't keep pace because their passing game is dysfunctional, we could be looking at a blowout. But here's where the story could take an interesting turn. Sometimes players respond to pressure and criticism by elevating their game. Sometimes being publicly backed by your coaches, even when the fans and media are killing you, gives a player the confidence boost they need to turn things around. There's an outside chance that Jerry Jeudy uses all this negativity as fuel, comes out against the Bills, and has the game of his life. It would be the ultimate redemption arc, the kind of story that would instantly flip the narrative and make everyone talking trash look foolish. The problem is, we've seen no evidence that such a turnaround is coming. Jerry Jeudy has had multiple opportunities to silence his critics, multiple games where he could have responded with production, and he hasn't done it. At some point, you have to judge players based on what they're actually doing on the field, not on what they're capable of doing in theory. The Browns are in the middle of a playoff race, fighting for their postseason lives. They don't have the luxury of waiting around hoping Jerry Jeudy figures it out. They need production now, and if Jeudy can't provide it, they need to find someone who can. The broader implications of this situation extend beyond just one player or one game. The Browns are at a crossroads as a franchise. They have a young quarterback in Shedeur Sanders who represents the future. They have a coaching staff that's trying to establish credibility and build a winning culture. They have a fan base that's been through decades of disappointment and desperately wants to believe this time will be different. How the organization handles the Jerry Jeudy situation will tell us a lot about whether they're willing to make tough decisions, hold players accountable, and prioritize winning over protecting feelings or trade value. In the modern NFL, with social media and instant analysis, there's nowhere to hide. Fans have access to film, statistics, and expert breakdowns that make it impossible for teams to spin narratives that don't match reality. When Tommy Rees says the coaching staff trusts Jerry Jeudy completely, but the film shows drop after drop, fans aren't just going to accept the party line. They're going to call bullshit, and rightfully so. Authenticity matters. Accountability matters. If the Browns want to build a winning culture, it starts with being honest about what's working and what isn't. The Bills game is going to be a major test for everyone involved. For Shedeur Sanders, it's a chance to show he can compete against elite competition. For Jerry Jeudy, it's potentially a make-or-break moment where he either steps up or confirms all the doubts. For the coaching staff, it's an opportunity to prove their faith in Jeudy was justified, or an exposure of their inability to accurately evaluate their own roster. For the Browns organization as a whole, it's a statement game about where they are as a franchise and whether they're ready to compete with the league's best. As we head into this weekend, the football world will be watching Cleveland closely. Social media will be on fire with every Jerry Jeudy target, celebrating if he makes a play, roasting him and the coaches if he drops another pass. The hot take machines will be running overtime. The pressure will be immense. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos is a young quarterback trying to establish himself in the NFL while dealing with a receiver situation that's become a national storyline. One thing's for sure, this story isn't going away anytime soon. Whether Jerry Jeudy proves everyone wrong with a breakout performance, or whether he confirms the criticism with more drops and struggles, the narrative around him and the Browns coaching staff will continue to be one of the most compelling storylines for the rest of the season. The disconnect between what we're being told and what we're seeing with our own eyes is just too glaring to ignore. So there you have it, folks. The complete breakdown of the Jerry Jeudy saga that has the Browns coaching staff under fire and the entire football world talking. Will Jeudy silence his critics against the Bills? Will Shedeur Sanders get the receiving help he desperately needs? Will Tommy Rees and Kevin Stefanski's public support be vindicated or exposed as misplaced loyalty? We're about to find out, and you can bet the answers will be fascinating no matter how this plays out. If you found this deep dive valuable, make sure you smash that like button so more people can see this story. Drop a comment below with your prediction for the Browns-Bills game and whether you think Jerry Jeudy will turn things around. And definitely subscribe to the channel because we're going to be covering all the fallout from this game and bringing you the latest developments in this ongoing saga. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. This is the kind of story that could define seasons, make or break careers, and give us all something to argue about for years to come. Stay tuned, stay engaged, and let's see how this drama unfolds.